this episode of the bonus round, we take a look at you, the gamer. We're joined by Michael Pachter, Jessica Chobot, and Kyle Bossman to discuss the changing face of gamers, as well as how publishers are talking directly to gamers.
Nintendo did the greatest thing and the worst thing ever to the core gaming industry.
Where does it all end? Find out on this episode of the bonus round, starting right now. We're back here on the bonus round on GT with Michael Pachter, Jessica Chobot, and Kyle, the final Bossman. All right, guys, so this week we're going to talk about the idea of who is a gamer. We talked about a little bit about it last week, but today, games are changing so much. I think that's something we even think and talk about at GT is like we've got mobile gamers who play on iPad, and then we've got the kind of the hardcore gamer who's still seen as the, the Nintendo fan or the Xbox or PlayStation fan. And then, there's lots happening in the social space and Facebook and things like that. Are there more people playing games now, Michael, than ever before? People say that, but is that true?
It's true if you define game as something that is made specifically for a device that is intended only to be for entertainment. I remember back in the early 90s, I read a statistic that there were 400 million people who had played solitaire on a PC. So, but I mean, that's a game, right? And the only reason that it's not really a game is because you could play it with cards, and all that did was allow you. It was free, and you could do it at work, right? And so it's different now. I mean, I think you would expand that now to say people play Bejeweled or Candy Crush Saga or Farmville. Of course, those are gamers, or Angry Birds on their phones.
And those are free, and it's
pretty much everything.
Crush, I think I dropped at least $300 on that sucker.
But but there are more people playing those types of games, and I think, well, there are clearly more people playing on dedicated devices now than ever before. I think the right way to frame this is, there are 2.5 billion people in the world with internet access. And my guess is a good 1.5 billion of them have played a game that was made, specifically for PC or for a Mac. There are 1.5 billion people in the world with cell phones, shockingly, and I would bet 1 billion of them have played at least jammed at bowling, from the basic, from the basic feature phone, and of course Angry Birds. There are only 250 million people in this last generation who bought consoles. Right. So the audience that we talk to the most, and you can throw the PC gamer in there because the PC gamer isn't playing Farmville.
They appreciate the mention.
Yeah, but it's 250, 300 million people. It's not this gigantor audience like we have for free-to-play Farmville.
So there are more, sort of non-gamers than gamers in that, sense of the hardcore console.
Depending on how Kyle defines gamer,
yeah.
but yeah, people. There are plenty of people who play games on devices where they weren't playing anything other than solitaire before, and a lot more than ever.
And not a dedicated gaming device. I mean, we saw, even around the Xbox reveal, they had a lot of stats about how, in this next generation Xbox One, we want to sell, 500 million units. It's not about, selling 100 million units. So is this sort of the gold mine for the next generation? Is it focusing more on these other folks who kind of casually play games? Because we know, all the people that we talk to every day are probably going to buy one of these systems anyways.
Well, I think Nintendo did the greatest thing and the worst thing ever to the core gaming industry with the Wii. Right. Because they expanded that market to 65-year-old women who bought a Wii for Wii Fit or Wii Bowling, and that legitimized gaming in their minds. So they stopped lecturing their kids and their grandkids and their daughters and their granddaughters, don't play games, games are bad, because grandma's playing games too. Right. So that was a great thing. The bad thing is that Nintendo kind of overshot game sales, and so we had the industry grow bigger than it ever should have. Right. And as those older people abandoned console gaming and moved on to Farmville and stuff, we saw the industry decline. I think a lot of companies built up planning on that continuing forever. That's THQ, to some extent Ubisoft with Just Dance. And now that audience is gone, and we're back to the core, and I think the core is going to get bigger because we're going to have women playing for a long time. And I think, you were talking about that in the last episode. And I think that the older people who actually got hooked and really like games are going to continue to play games. So you can have a lot of 40-year-old and 50-year-old people playing on consoles. So I think it's great. But I think the bad thing is that we had some casualties in the last cycle. We lost Midway, we lost THQ. I think people that overly relied on that casual market, it kind of dried up.
Amazing. Now, when you think though about gamers and sort of this audience, where it's going then for the next generation of gaming, Kyle, is there a worry amongst gamers? I think there is, that the sort of the purity of gaming is being polluted now with sort of all this other stuff that's coming into the mix.
Right. Yeah. I guess that's it. It's the thing that it's just like, oh, this isn't for us anymore. They're trying to reach a bigger audience and we'll be left behind, I think, is the fear. And I don't think that's something to be afraid of, because I think that, the type of people who care, the type of people who watch this show, who love video games enough to just want to see people talk about them, they will be there. We will always love video games. And I think that's something that's kind of not spoken about enough, is that, like, yeah, people play dumb games on their phones, but very few people love those games. And the people who stick around are the people who create those relationships of a game that they truly connect with. And I think that won't go away. And I think that will, continue to help us move forward.
Well, and part of, I think, what the hope is, I know amongst a lot of us, is that, these people that start playing just with a game on their phone may eventually grow interested in gaming in a bigger way, and then, immerse themselves in some of these richer worlds where you can be like, wow, the story in Red Dead was incredible or something like that. And that's the idea, is can you grow these people into being, more typical kind of gamers?
My father is actually exactly one of those people. He's the guy that once he got his smartphone would fiddle around with a couple games here and there. I'd get random texts when he learned how to text. Right.
He must be really old.
What games do you recommend, or this, that, and the other thing? And now he's playing Uncharted 3.
Oh, wow.
And I bought him, we got him a PlayStation 3 and an Xbox 360 for Christmas and his birthday. And he still hasn't accepted my friend's request. I don't understand why. But he'll call me up. Like one year, a couple years ago, I went home for Christmas, and he called me up and he's like, can you come over and set up the wireless, because my neighbor got a PlayStation 3 and we want to play online. Can you go? But he doesn't know how to do it. Can you go show him? Right. So I went next door and had them start talking to each other, and now they play all the time. So it's just, he's one of those guys. I mean, it's happening.
Is the industry doing enough to sort of court those gamers or that audience? Because you think of some of the top creators in our business. I mean, they're all a lot of them are saying, well, I don't want to make a smartphone game. It's like, I can make these big rich narratives.
I don't want to get blasted too badly for this, but I think that the developers are keenly conscious of this audience, and I know the hardcore is going to lash out at this, but I think that's why we get story-driven games. Because story-driven games are really fun for everybody playing them, and even if you suck at it, you want to know what happens next, and you're willing to actually stick with it and try because you want to know what happens next. And I remember, playing just random shooters back maybe 2000, 2002, and not caring and being, put it down, but play Uncharted and try stopping. Right. Like you might play Mass Effect and try stopping.
Last of Us,
I haven't played Last of Us yet. I got to do that. Yeah, you want to know what happens next, and that's what caused the Mass Effect 3 ending fiasco, because they wanted to know what happened next, and it didn't happen the way they wanted it to happen. So, I think that is squarely aimed at broadening the appeal of the game. Although, the hardcore thinks it's for them. Right. And the crazy thing is, it's a tool to turn a more casual gamer into a hardcore gamer. The hardcore guy gets into it because he already was hardcore. He was going to play it anyway. But I think story-driven games embrace more people. And how many of those stories did you hear about somebody playing, I heard this with Uncharted a lot, their boyfriend or girlfriend would watch them, or their husband or wife would watch them play because they were watching a movie. Yeah. I remember one scene. In Uncharted 1. I put the controller down because I thought it was a cutscene.
Right, and you pick it up.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was actually doing something. I'm like, oh my God, because you would normally, because I wasn't trained yet. Yeah, so oh man. But I think those are great. And if you can bring in your spouse to watch you play, suddenly the whole household it becomes gamers because they're all interested in it.
I'll lash out at you right now though about it. Like they're just those people are trying to make a good game. They're not trying to make a game that like appeals.
No,
to,
I know. I know. I mean, I think that they actually are they just understand who their audience is and how to appeal.
Just want to tell a great story, and great stories
and
are
those
universal.
are things that appeal to. I mean, no movie ever won the Academy Award because the writer sat down and said, "I'm going to write the best picture." He said, "I'm going to write a movie that's really going to entertain audiences." And then what do you know? It was so entertaining, it sold lots of tickets. Yeah. So I mean, I agree with you. They're aiming at their core, but the ones that succeed with everybody, and I think it broadens the demographic.
Well, and even now you see like there are lots of games now where you can on YouTube you can just watch the whole game as a movie or something like that, and it's a great compelling narrative which you don't even have to play. And I think there was even Uncharted had a cinema mode or something where you just watch the cutscenes, and there's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
which
did.
is like that stuff.
I saw the YouTube video for what Thrift Shop, the song band. So I found that interesting. It made me like the song more. So YouTube is a great thing. Did you ever see that one?
Little did we know that Matt wore Ryan Lewis.
What?
Wow, all right.
Yeah, okay.
That's what you listen to in the Porsche when you're driving up to
I love that song. Are you kidding? My kids always sing it. And, there's some pretty bad words in there. Yeah. And my kids are singing. This is how I heard the song the first time. My kids are singing along, and they're like, "This is." Can I say this one? They're like, "This is awesome." My 12-year-old daughter, I'm going, "What is awesome?"
But the song's about positivity.
No, the song is awesome. I love the song, and it's like I'm okay with it. Yeah, I'm okay with that. No,
Its heart's in the right place.
And I have Grandpa's, clothes, so there you go.
Little did we know about Macklemore fan. All right, guys, hold that thought. We're going to be right back here in the bonus round.